My friend, you want to come over real quick?
You see, he's scared again. Yeah, he's scared.
Lyman, I love you, okay? Lyman, I love you. But you're wrong.
You can't debate.
My friend, oh, sorry. There you go.
All study your Bible. Thank you very much.
My friend, please. So, this gentleman, what's your name, my friend? I'm David, by the way. Mao. How you doing? So, you asked the question, if I lose my fingers, am I still me? I would say yes. Why would I say yes? My fingers are not essential. I don't have to have these to be me. My identity is based on a composition of things that aren't just my finger, okay? So, if I compare these fingers to Allah's attributes.
But these are not compared.
Okay, great. So what was the point you were trying to raise by saying, if I lost my fingers, would I still be me?
Because you're breaking down the attributes as separate things. So you're saying if God has 99 attributes, he would have to be 99 gods.
Yes. Okay.
That's not right.
Okay, wait.
Comparable, so you can't compare him to normal things that
that's fine. I don't know anything that has 99 eternal attributes, so that's fine.
Yeah, because nothing's like it.
Awesome. So I'm not talking about anything in particular. I'm talking only about Allah. Okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. Now, you said that I am breaking down the attributes, but the attributes are not the same thing. They are all distinct from each other. Al-Hay isn't Al-Haq, so they are already different anyway.
Yeah.
So they are already broken down anyway.
Yeah.
Okay.
But not different.
I haven't done anything wrong.
So can you be, can you be tall and black?
Okay. I can be tall and black, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Those are two descriptors.
But
they are not essential qualities. Okay? Now, if we go back to Allah's attributes, are they created by Allah or have they always existed alongside Allah? What does your Aqidah say?
So if you existed without a heart, would you be existing?
Well, yes, because people live without hearts, yes. Now, if Allah...
Can someone be born without a heart?
Yes, that's a condition, unfortunately.
Without... Yeah. And they're living?
Well, through medical technology now, they can. It's possible now, through medical conditions. So they can either be born without a heart or with a undeveloped heart, and they can still survive with surgery.
Undeveloped means they still have a heart.
Yeah, but it's not functioning. So, like, is a heart a heart without functioning?
Can you completely not
I
have
think in some rare cases you can.
So can someone be not having any lungs, born without lungs, and live?
Okay, fine. So lungs are essential. I would say, I don't know any examples, there might be a free case, but let's go with your example. Can somebody be born without lungs and live? Let's just say no, okay? So we can say that the lungs are essential for life, okay? So that means that Allah has to have all his attributes to be Allah, yes?
But you're comparing him to things that you know.
Yes, because you keep bringing these examples, trying to showcase to me things that are created that require certain features to exist. Why? Because you're trying to show me that, oh, if babies need this, that's why Allah has this, right?
So again, you said, if you did not have any...
I'm gonna ask, when you give me these analogies, I'm gonna ask you why you're doing it now, so you can explain to me why you're doing it. Okay? Because I think that every time you do it, you're trying to show me that some things are required in order for a thing to exist.
Right, so in order for a human being to exist, they need to have lungs, right?
Okay.
So you said that Allah, if he did not have his attributes, he would not be Allah.
Yes.
But he does have these attributes, therefore he's unlike anything else.
Okay. And the attributes are not created, yes or no?
Irrelevant, completely irrelevant.
Ooh, no, we must ask these questions.
They're not created.
Awesome. If something is not created, it is therefore eternal, without a beginning or without an end.
Correct.
Okay, in your theology, how many things can have no beginning and no end? In mine, it's only God.
I completely agree with you.
But the attributes also have no beginning or end.
Completely agree with you.
Okay, so that means that the attributes are therefore God, because initially...
The attributes cannot be a thing on its own. Lungs cannot be a human.
Okay, so the attributes are dependent upon Allah.
There's no dependence.
Well, for lungs to function, they mostly need a human being or a machine, right? So they are kind of dependent to perform their role. So the attributes, to perform their role, do they require Allah or not?
Again, you're trying to split something that's
is Allah the same thing as his attributes?
One of his attributes is the creator.
Okay,
right?
so
you're saying these are created attributes.
No, so I'm asking if they are or if they are not.
Okay.
Which one is it?
What is your
Are the attributes created or not created?
What do you mean created or not created?
Did the attributes were the attributes caused to come into being, or did they have no beginning?
As an example, let's take one attribute.
Okay.
Merciful.
Okay.
God is merciful.
Okay.
How do you create mercy?
I don't know.
All right. So what you're asking for, you don't know how to
Yeah.
define.
Yeah. Well.
You're asking for something you don't know how to define.
Okay.
To be
No.
merciful,
I do know how to define
there has to be
mercy.
context,
You
right?
asked me to define how it was created. I can define mercy, but I can't describe to you how it was created. So I am not describing something I don't know how to define. I can define it.
we're on the same page.
But to be created, that means something different. So again, I'm asking you, do you think that, for example, in my theology, the love of God is not created, and the love of God is equivalent to God?
right.
If you talk about God's love, that's the same thing as talking about God. When we talk about Allah's attributes, are they equivalent to
love is an
Allah?
attribute. That's the same thing. Love is an
Well,
attribute.
okay, so we
Equivalent in
regard that
what
one.
context? Sorry, equivalent in what way?
Does
Are you trying to equate?
does the Creator equal the whole of Allah? Everything that Allah is that what the Creator is?
So, what do you classify the love of God as?
The love of God is an essential quality of God, which without there wouldn't be a stable universe.
All right.
So, all these are the same thing. The 99 attributes are the same definition.
Okay, so the 99 attributes are all equivalent to the whole of Allah.
It's not an
I'm trying
equivalent.
to
Are you saying
understand the
love is
equation. How are
equivalent
you
to?
equating the two?
Okay, Allah is one, and there are 99 ones.
Attributes to the one. So you can have multiple attributes to yourself as an individual.
But Allah isn't like me, so my attributes are created, Allah's aren't.
Okay.
So,
in what context is what I'm trying to say? So if we take merciful, we said as an example.
yes.
How do you equate merciful to Allah as an entire entity?
You tell me.
No, you're asking the question.
We're not-
What do
we're
you
saying
No,
it's
no.
not created.
So are you saying that mercy is not equal to the whole of Allah then?
What is the equation? This is what I'm trying
The
to ask. It doesn't make any
equation,
sense.
the equation is that there is one, which is Allah,
Okay.
and then next to the one, there's a
What
comma,
of
and then
the
there are
attributes?
99 ones.
David.
Are the 99 ones equal to the original one?
David,
So it's a
it's not
mathematical
next to the
equation.
one.
Yeah, so does 1 equal 1, 1, 99
In
ones?
the context of mathematics.
Sure, if you want to do it, because just for an equation, right?
It's a
I don't
qualitative- It's a
believe.
qualitative description, being merciful.
Oh, so it's not a real thing.
It's not a quantitative measure.
So it's not real. It's
you cannot say to me, merciful
Yep.
is equivalent to Allah on its own.
okay. So is it a part of him?
It's a description
Okay.
for someone like you, for someone like me to understand the attributes of God. Like you said, there are multiple attributes to God. Like I said, there could be multiple attributes to your personality, right? It doesn't have to be necessarily the one. If I say that you're tall, you being tall doesn't define you in your entirety, right?
Okay.
There's a lot more to you.
Okay.
You could be intelligent, you could have all of these other attributes to you.
Okay.
So how are you trying to equate one attribute to the entire entity? This is my question. This is what I'm trying to understand from you.
Okay, so you're telling me is that me being tall, me being black, however the case might be, does not equal to the whole of me.
Okay.
So why am I trying to equate a single
One
one
of
of my
these attributes,
qualities to the whole of me?
Yes.
Okay, so I am not doing that. I am a composite being. I am made of parts. Is Allah made of parts?
Sorry, I have to stop you right there.
Okay.
That is what you're doing. You're asking us to equate one of these measures to the entirety of
I'm
God.
asking you, does it? I'm not asking you to do it. I'm asking you, does it? Yes or no? Does one of the qualities equal Allah, or do the qualities not equal the whole of Allah? Therefore, Allah is composite. He's made of parts.
He's not made of things. That's a description of him.
What are we describing? Are we describing something that is abstract, imaginary,
Go-
or something that's real? Is the
Just go
mercy
back
of God
step.
a real thing?
Go back a step. Where
Okay.
you said the love of God.
Yes.
How do you not have that same mentality with the
The love
attributes
of God,
The love of God.
the love of God in Christianity
Yeah.
is equal to the whole of God. The love of God is an essential quality of God. Without love, there is no God. Without God, there is no love.
But is he merciful?
You can ascribe attributions to God, but in the Bible, it distinctly tells us that brothers and sisters love one another because God is love. So we take from
question.
that in the essential nature of God is love. Love is equal to God, and without God, you can't have love, and vice versa.
Can God punish his creation?
God has the ability to do so. Yes,
Has he done so in?
He has.
All right. So if you were to only define him as a loving God, or,
Yep.
or this one characteristic
Yep.
defines God.
Yep.
In what context is that action of punishment?
You're presupposing that love does not also mean the ability to punish.
Okay.
So you're gonna have to prove that love means you can't punish.
So that means there's another attribute, not just love.
So, these are not attributes, these are actions. So now, when you're talking about punishment, punishment isn't an attribute, it's an action. Love is the essential quality that I'm talking about here. So when
So
it
when
comes
he-
to
sorry,
Allah,
when he asked
are
about-
any of his qualities essential, as in, without them, would he still be Allah?
Yeah.
If he had 98 names and only 99, would it still be Allah or not?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
He would.
Yeah.
Okay, so what is the purpose of the attributes if they are not essential?
What do you mean? In what context are they essential or not essential?
So, as something that is essential would imply that it has to exist, it has to be there. It is a quality which without negates the ability of a thing. So if Allah was not...
of the thing.
Yes. If Allah was not all merciful, if like he lost the attribute of mercy, would it still be God?
Yes.
Why?
Because he has the other 98 attributes
Okay.
that we discussed. For instance, him being the creator, he cannot lose that attribute because he has created already, right? There are creations. If this entire humanity were to just disappear, the creation is no longer there, but the creator is, right?
So in the attributes, there's a hierarchy.
In what context?
So there is no way that Allah can lose the ability to be a creator, but potentially he can lose mercy.
No.
So when I just said that if you took away the attribute of mercy from Allah, would it still be God? He said yes.
He's still God, yeah.
Because he has the other 98 attributes, right? So it implies, but then he said further that you can't take away the attribute of creation because he has already created.
Yeah.
So it seems that among the 99, there are some that can be taken away and not affect Allah being God, but some that have to be there.
In response to that, mercy being taken away as an example in Islam, Day of Judgment, there is no mercy. So you cannot ask for mercy on the Day of Judgment, right? At this point, all of your sins and your deeds have been accounted for, and there's no more changing the balance of that, right? So mercy is no longer there. God is still there. God, his role as God is still there.
Okay, so that makes it even more interesting.
So there's a context there.
There are some attributes that aren't eternal, but some are.
In what context are you saying are not eternal?
So wait, a moment. Let me come back to you in just 1 second. Let me address that point. So some attributes will be done away with, like mercy. But the rest of them won't. Because, for example, Allah is the truth. He is the all-knowing. He is the all-living, or the ever-living, sorry.
Right.
Those probably can't go away, because without those, Allah wouldn't be Allah anymore.
Okay.
Right? So there appears to be a hierarchy in the 99, where there are some qualities that are essential for God to be God, but others that aren't.
Is your question to be, is there a hierarchy in the attributes?
So that is a point. It's not necessarily a question. You can answer it if you want to, but overall, my question is, the relationship between Allah and his attributes seems to be one where you are either stuck in a rock and a hard place. If you go to one angle, the attributes are created things, but Allah relies on them in order to be God. And if you go to another angle, they are not created. Therefore, you have 99 plus things that are also eternal along with God.
Okay, so you're claiming that each attribute is what qualifies God to be God.
What else would they do?
I'm asking you.
Yes, that's my claim. Because that is a traditional Sunni claim. To Allah belongs all the most beautiful names. Okay?
It's very important that we do not miss the fact that these things cannot just vanish and stop existing. Yes, he stops using them and wants to use them as he wish. For example, let's just go back to yours as an example.
You're pointing at me here, so make your statement.
He said that mercy would go away.
Not go away, he would stop using it, and to be fair to other people.
Would it still be there?
It's a description.
Okay.
It's a description and not anything else.
Allah would still have the capacity to be merciful, right?
Okay.
In the example that I gave you about Judgment Day,
okay.
he still has the capacity to be merciful.
Well, he withholds it.
Yes.
Okay. So it's still there.
Okay. Yeah.
So mercy is an eternal attribute.
Yes. All of them are eternal attributes.
Awesome. That means they're all gods.
But you're breaking.
Hold on. Again, you can have more than one attribute to you. Not each attribute is an individual God that is free thinking.
But it's eternal.
It's one individual God with all of these attributes combined.
So there are things that can be eternal that are not God in your eyes.
In what context? Give me an
things
example.
that have no beginning and no end, but they are God. Like Allah's attributes.
Allah's attributes.
Yes.
It's something that defines Allah.
But it's more than that, no. It's not just a descriptor. Because no, wait, but
you're changing the
wait, but no, I am not actually. You are, because so if the attributes are only descriptors, then there's no need to have only 99. We can have 10 million.
That's down to him.
No, wait.
He decides to explain to us how his attributes are.
So
we don't decide.
So if you're saying that the attributes are only descriptors, then that means that we can add an infinite number of descriptors to God, because they are only just.
These are the ones that were revealed to the Prophet Muhammad.
Okay.
Why would you then go out of your way to add new ones?
There are words that Muhammad never knew, expressions that he never knew, ideas he never knew. For example, did he know what the word magnanimous was?
Magnanimous?
Yes.
All right. Define in your context.
Magnanimous is when somebody is charitable even to their enemies.
Okay, so is there no attributable name of Allah
That is magnanimous.
that is not in
No.
the same context as magnanimous?
No,
I'll have to.
I don't believe so. I think I read them all.
Define magnanimous, and I'll translate it.
Somebody who is merciful and forgiving to their enemies.
Ghafur Rahim.
Well, no, that is the most merciful. But Allah is not merciful to those people who disobey Him who forget about Him, who turn away from Him.
But he's
So,
merciful even to the enemies.
but how so when it says that Allah does not love the unbeliever, the kuffar, the one that turns away from Him? In Surah 43:61, it says that if you forget the remembrance of the All-Merciful, that He will send demons to be your companions.
Sorry,
I mean,
you can be loving and not love something, right?
well, you can be loving and not love something. That's interesting, right? So, if you possess, it depends, right? Are we talking about human love, where I can love you and hate him,
Okay,
or
define
is
human
it?
love.
Huh?
You mentioned human love as a phrase.
Okay.
Define human love.
It's created as perishable, and it's only a fraction of what a true agape love is.
Okay, something that is perishable.
Yeah, human love, absolutely.
What is a godly love?
Ooh, godly love is eternal, right?
Can that godly love be separated from God?
No, I say it can't.
But we're saying all attributes cannot be separated.
Okay, so that means that Al-Hay is equivalent to Allah.
It cannot be separated.
Al-Hay is equivalent to Allah, yes? Or is it only a part of Allah?
It's a description. Al-Hayy in English means the living.
Okay.
Because he's eternal, he's forever going to be there.
Constantly.
He was there, and he's going to be there for
Okay.
eternal.
So
He's just not going to go away.
Al-Hay isn't a real thing. It's just a description. That's all it is. So it's not real.
It's a
Something
description.
defines. Yeah.
So it's not actually a real thing. Like tall isn't a real thing.
That's like you saying I'm not here right now.
Well, no, it's not, because you are a human being. You have cognition. You can talk to us and communicate with us. So from that respect, I can say that with my senses, you are here. Not here with us,
Let me just put
right?
this in context.
Because again,
Hayy-
that's the
Hayy-
scripture.
Hayy means living.
They're
So
all
right
living,
now,
yes, so
Right
they are
now,
living.
I'm Hayy right now. Just Hayy, not Al Hayy. When
not
you put
difficult, man.
when you put this is Arabic, right? So when you put AL before the word,
It means like
it becomes
the.
the thing. So right now I'm Hayy.
Okay.
I will never be Al Hayy because I will die at some point.
Okay,
and,
sure.
And a couple of years ago, I wasn't even there,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
So with God, it's Al Hayy.
Okay.
Rahim, I can be Rahim. I
Okay.
can be
Sure thing.
respectful or anything like that.
Sure
But
thing.
when you put the definition, so Al the,
Okay.
that's just one.
All of the scriptures you just named for yourself are all perishable. They're all created. They're all not everlasting. But with Allah, they are.
Yes.
So with you, I can use those scriptures on you. That's fine. But when it comes to Allah, the way that we use it isn't the same thing.
So I have a
So
question.
that
How
would
you-
mean
How would you understand God if He does not give you attributes for you to understand?
through His actions.
Okay, as an example.
Okay, so for example, if God, when God came to Abraham and promised him a child and then gave him a child eventually, right?
God came to Abraham.
Yes.
In what,
Promised him a child.
in what context did he come to Abraham? Physically, he came to Abraham.
Physically called to Abraham, right? The Incarnation.
I agree to disagree on that.
Not the Incarnation. Sorry. So let me not say the Incarnation, but God, the Word in particular, in Genesis, appears to Moses in the form of a man, very similar to how in Surah 19:17 the Spirit of Allah appears to Mary in the form of a man.
The Spirit of Allah.
Yes,
You're
yes.
referring to Gabriel.
No, the Spirit of Allah.
Okay.
Those are two different things.
Sorry.
Okay, so
So just before you continue, I'm going to let you continue. But
Okay.
we do not believe that God can be in the form of human. He cannot turn into the form of a human.
he doesn't say that.
He would
No,
not reveal
because he's
himself.
referring to Genesis. He's referring to something that we don't necessarily believe in.
Well, you basically do because
So,
we live in the
okay,
same
so-
story and
No,
everything.
no, you
right?
mentioned-
No, but we don't believe
Spirit
God
of
would reveal himself to humans. Or any
Does he ever say that anywhere?
Sorry?
What?
Does he ever say anywhere that I will not reveal myself to you in the form of man? Anywhere? In the hadiths, in the sunnah,
sorry.
anywhere?
You don't prove the negative, right? You prove that he has done something.
Yeah.
So,
No,
that's what-
because there are many things Allah hasn't done, for example, right?
Genesis
That,
said
that we can
God
then.
came to Gabriel, right?
No, that he came to Abraham.
Sorry, Abraham, excuse me. In the Quran, does it say that?
No.
Okay, so you're asking us about something we don't actually believe in.
Well, okay, here's the problem. I'm sure you're aware already. If you've ever read the Bible, the Quran is lacking severely in context. So you're going to have to rely. It's not. You can't. You can't, unfortunately. Because
You can't talk to us about something we don't believe in.
you can't. Yeah, you can't say about the Bible, right?
Here's a question.
Because let me finish. Because unfortunately, in the Quran, it's not really a descriptive book. It's sort of just interprets things as though that the people who are hearing the recitations are already aware of who Moses is. They already know who Abraham is. Blah 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 blah. So in that case, you can just say, "Oh, remember that one time when Moses saw Allah in the bush." Right?
You realize the Quran came after the Bible and the Torah.
Which is why it's assuming, so it's presupposing that those people who it's telling the stories to already know about these stories.
Right.
So in order for you to know about the stories, you have to refer to the text where they came from, which will be the Old Testament or the New.
So what's the purpose of the Quran if we can just refer to these ones, right?
I don't even know, to be honest with you.
Exactly. You don't,
I don't know what the purpose is.
My point is,
I don't think there's one,
context,
personally.
From our context, the Quran came and completed the things that were lacking.
But
in
it
the
didn't
Bible and
complete
Torah.
anything.
For you, as an individual.
Like, I mean, for example, for you to say completed something, you'd have to like showcase that
Which
something
is the
was.
argument that the brother was making earlier, that Jesus actually didn't claim to be God,
But he did.
according to the Bible.
Yes.
Which we believe is not correct. The Quran came to resolve this issue.
You have no way of proving that it is not correct. The Quran literally takes whole sections of scripture from the Bible and just puts it in there without
That's
telling
correct.
you if it's
some of the
correct
Bible
or
is
wrong.
correct.
No, but you see, there is no
The argument is that
principle.
it's distorted, not that it's
Yeah,
not.
but there's no principle that you can use to tell what is and is not distorted. Because the Quran is not an exhaustive list of everything in the Bible that is correct or not correct.
So which Bible are we referring to? Version 1, 2, Old Testament, New Testament? Which one?
Which Quran are we referring to?
There's only one
Right?
Quran.
Okay, so
only one.
in that case, there's only one Bible.
Okay, so
it's
actually-
been made of an old,
Sorry,
it's made of an old and a New Testament,
But they're conflicting.
as are all of your Qurans.
David,
All of
how
the
are you
Quran.
saying there's
Yep.
one Bible?
The one
So
Quran.
all of your Quran written traditions, all of your Quran translations. For example, you mentioned that Gabriel was the one who came to Mary. I have read the Sahih International, and it said that it was Gabriel who went
Mary,
there.
You said Abraham.
No, to Mary. I didn't say. So, okay, you're confusing two things again. I told you that in the same way that God came to Abraham in Genesis, it's the same way as the Spirit of Allah came to Maryam in Surah 19. Then you said it was Gabriel. I've seen that before. In the Sahih
No, that wasn't
International,
Gabriel who came to Mary.
that's what you said.
No, I'm sorry. That's
Okay,
my
no,
mistake.
well, you haven't made a mistake actually, because in the Sahih International translation of the Quran, it does say Gabriel.
Oh.
But actually, in the Arabic, it's the Ruh Allah, the Spirit of Allah.
Right.
There is no equivalence to Gabriel, the
What is
Spirit
the
of Allah.
context? Sorry, the context of spirit to you means that God came in the form of a spirit to Mary.
Well,
What the Quran is saying.
the Quran says that he came as a man.
God
The
came as a
Quran.
man.
Well, here's the funny thing, right?
Oh, you're
No,
getting
it's
into
not.
sticky water.
No. It's easy to resolve. Surah 1917 to 1919 talks about the Spirit of Allah coming to Maryam in the form of a well-proportioned man and saying to her, the Spirit of Allah came to Maryam in the form of a well-proportioned man.
Okay.
It then says to Maryam, do not be afraid, I am a messenger of your Lord, I will bestow upon you a pure son.
I'm a what of your Lord?
I am a messenger of your Lord, I will
So I'm not
bestow
your Lord.
upon
Having
you
the messenger of her.
I will bestow upon you a pure son. Now, we fast forward to Surah 66:12, where the same story is told again. And it says, remember Maryam, who protected her chastity. So we blew into her something of our spirits, and she conceived. So, in the one hand, in Surah 19, it is the Spirit of Allah who's performing the bestowing of the child. Later, it's Allah who's blowing into Mary and having the child be conceived. So the Spirit of Allah and Allah appear to be partners in this creation of Isa.
The Spirit of Allah that referred to Allah as that
I'm
referred
the
to
messenger
himself
of Allah.
as the messenger
Well,
of Allah.
what I would say there is this is simply incarnation theology,
It is a
where
linguistic
the
issue
divine comes in as in the form of a servant, aka a man,
Yeah.
and then can say that I am a servant in the same way that Christ
That's
is called a servant.
Yeah,
That's
just
correct.
so we clarify that point.
Okay,
It was an angel that was sent to Mary.
that's not what it says.
Sorry.
That's not what the Quran says.
But you
Yeah,
literally
I'm
said, I'm a
explaining to you what's
messenger of Allah.
That's fine. So I say this in the same way that we believe that when Christ was on earth in the incarnation, that he could claim to be a messenger because yes, he is here in the form of a perishable thing to deliver a message. Allah can also claim the same thing when he comes as a man to Mary.
Our argument, again, in the Quran, Jesus was a messenger of God, right? He was not God himself.
Sure thing. Well, that's I don't agree with that.
Exactly. So,
Because he's divine.
no.
So
we
he has to
all
be God.
understand here that, for instance, you follow the Bible and its interpretation of Jesus Christ. Our interpretation of Jesus is that he's a messenger. Yours is that he's God.
I would say yours is incomplete because you don't have enough words of his. You can't tell me.
I can make the argument.
Well, okay.
There's different versions of the Bible. One claims where Jesus claims that he's God, and in others he does not. He claims that he's a messenger.
Which is the one where he claims is God, and then which are the ones that say he's not God? Can you tell me that, please?
Maybe you can, because you're the expert in the Bible, right?
Okay.
This is what you believe.
Thank you. Because I'm the expert,
Go ahead.
I can tell you that all Bibles say that Jesus Christ is God. There we go.
All Bibles say that
All Bibles
Jesus
say
Christ
is God. Yes.
All right.
The,
I'm very well aware that
Yep.
there are multiple verses in the Bible.
Yep.
Right? I'm sorry that I can't refer to them.
That's fine.
I'm
No
not
worries. No worries. So
But
say
there
roughly,
are,
and then I
there are
can.
multiple verses
Okay.
in the Bible where Jesus mentions that he's the messenger of God,
Which is true.
right? But it conflicts with the argument that he is God.
Well, no, because that is what incarnation theology means. If the infinite comes to the finite, the infinite cannot display all the qualities of the infinite in the finite. So if God is infinite, and then God comes here, in the Quran you have so all the time. Allah appears to Moses in the burning bush. Allah appears behind the mountain, and then the mountain explodes and Moses passes out. So the infinite can enter the finite in some kind of meaningful way, but cannot display the full magnitude of his ability.
So Allah speaking to Moses through the bush.
Yep.
It's not Allah being the bush speaking to Moses.
Okay, then again, what's happening there?
So I'll give you the back story to it, I guess. Moses is traveling in the dark in the desert. There's
Yes.
a bush on fire. That's a signal for him to go. He was lost at the time, so he was going to find shelter or seek direction.
Surah 28:30 or Surah 20:10, yeah.
Great. So
It's told in both.
why did God use this as a tool to communicate with Moses? He needed to speak to Moses individually.
Okay.
Moses came to the burning bush. God spoke to him. God wasn't the burning bush.
Is God incapable of just talking to Moses via like telepathy?
Not fully capable, yeah.
So why has God chosen to appear in a bush? Because the voice says that the voice of Allah came from the bush.
Yes.
So why does God have to appear as a bush?
Now imagine this.
Okay.
Moses is traveling in the desert with his
Yep.
family.
Yep.
Starts speaking incoherently to a voice that only he can hear.
Okay.
Do I need to continue?
Yes, you do.
Okay, Moses is going to seem
Because
like a madman to his own family.
right,
He's
but
traveling with.
he's
Yeah.
right, but he seems sane in going up to a fire and coming back down to his family and saying, "Hey, wife and kids, a fire just told me to go do something." That's sane to you.
It's look again. You're asking about a specific scenario here.
Yeah.
Moses
so-
going and speaking to a bush. To you, seems incoherent, but it makes more sense.
It's not
to you.
incoherent to me. The same story is in the Bible. All that's happening there is that the presence
So why
of
are you
God.
arguing about that point? If it's in the
So
Bible?
I am trying to show you that at certain instances, the divine, the infinite, can interact with the finite, but only in a finite manner.
Okay, did we argue against that point?
Yes, you did, because he was saying that you don't believe that Allah can come here. And I'm telling you that the Quran says, well,
We're saying Allah has
well,
not done so.
well,
Because you made the
the
claim that he did.
Quran says opposite. The Quran, Surah 2, verse 115, says that if you look to the east and look to the west, what do you see? The face of Allah. So somehow the face of Allah is in the
face
east
of
and the
Allah.
west.
Sorry, it says you will see the face of
Yep.
Allah. That's how you've interpreted it, or
That's what it says. Surah 2, verse 115. Go look at it if you want to see it.
I know. That's not what it says.
What does it say? Then correct me, you're the expert.
No, I'm saying to you, you've misinterpreted something. It doesn't mean you're looking at Allah if you look east and west.
Okay.
All right. So this.
What does it mean?
No, absolutely. You completely misinterpreted that.
Because it says you see the face of Allah. So what does that mean?
Again, that's how you've interpreted it. That's not correct.
Okay.
You will not see the face.
What's a
of Allah.
face?
Explain. Give me the context.
Okay, a face is a construction of physical features that allow a thing to be identified.
So if you look east and west, do you see a face?
Well, I see nothing really.
All right.
So, what is Allah trying to communicate with us then?
All right,
In that case,
that's a much more relevant question.
Awesome.
All right,
Tell
you've
me, yeah.
interpreted it as a face. That's
Yes.
what I'm saying.
Well, it says the word face. So if
If you face the east,
yes,
does that mean there's a face in the east?
well,
or
if
you face the east?
it feels like it means that you faced east. So you turn your face to the east.
Exactly. So what I'd say
Your
is,
physical face.
before you make an argument about looking east and west to see the face of God,
Yes.
you need to understand what it says.
Okay.
You've not understood it.
Okay.
You made an argument that's completely false.
Okay. So if you face east, you're turning your face
Towards
to the east.
Yes.
Awesome. If you look to the east and see a face,
You need to
You're
understand what
looking
happened.
to the east
But
and seeing a
again,
face.
Yeah, that's my point.
Well,
You've misinterpreted.
that's what the Quran says. So
the Quran
again,
does not say that again.
it does say that.
I'm the expert in this one.
Also,
That's what it says. 2115.
Exactly. So it's not saying that there is a face in the east or in the west.
It
So,
says what?
Again, you're looking at the Arabic language here in an English context. Arabic and English are not.
Awesome. And that leads me to an even better point where it would seem that this religion is only for the Arabs, as it says in the Quran.
It says that this is
this
only for Arabs.
context,
Well, it says that Allah has revealed this to you in Arabic so that you may understand.
no, we're saying
Now-
the translation is incorrect.
Now,
Yeah.
if you are not Arabic, how can you ever really hope to understand what the Quran says?
You study it.
Most people will never study Arabic. Most people will never understand
choice.
Arabic.
That's not true.
Because
So-
in Europe, back in the days, when they had to learn sciences from the Arab world,
Yep.
Europeans had to learn Arabic to go and get that knowledge.
And then
So it's quite
the
doable to learn
Muslims,
the Arabic, right?
the Muslims before that had to get Greek-speaking Christians to translate the works of Aristotle into Arabic so that they could understand it. But if you look today, how many percent of the entire world can speak Arabic?
See that a Muslim supporting.
I can't believe it. Masha Yeshua, you're also going to become a Christian one day. Well done.
Look at that.
If we look today, only I think about.
The preservers of the Arabic language really aren't Arabs themselves. If you look in Indonesia and Asia
Yep.
and Persia,
Yes.
I think these are the ones that have really kept the Fusha and the classical Arabic intact.
Well, potentially, but I think only about like 8% of the entire world speaks Arabic fluently.
Are you within that percentage?
I am not.
Okay.
So that would mean that essentially, for 92% of the entire world, the Quran is inconceivable.
All right. If I can make an argument against that,
Because the Quran itself says, it says this. It says it in Surah 12, verse 2, and
That the
Surah
Quran is
43,
revealed in
verse 3,
Arabic, yeah.
so that they will understand.
Why-
So
why would
I'm
it-
not
why would
Arabic.
it say that?
Huh?
But why do you think that? Has it
I
got, has it not
think
got something
so.
to do with the elegant of the Arabic
I don't
language
think so.
and the sciences in the actual the language?
I wouldn't say so. I would simply say that Islam is a local religion. There are thousands of local religions. From my neck of the woods, I come from Nigeria. Before my people were Christianized, right? We had our own local religion. The world centered around us. We were the oldest people in the world. We had hidden knowledge. God favored us. So there's many local religions.
But you can say
So
the same
I
thing
just
with-
think it's
with
the same thing.
Christianity,
Well, you can't because from the very onset of Christianity, so let's just say when Christ ascends into heaven, from the very onset, you have people coming from all parts of the world to Jerusalem, learning the gospel, and then taking it back to their parts of the world simultaneously. Which is why in the first century, in the first like 0 to 99 or whatever, you have churches that are in Egypt, that are in Ethiopia, that are also in Rome and in Turkey. So it's not for one people. Like from the very beginning, it was absolutely fine to translate the gospel message because really it was more of a song than it was. Huh? Yes. Sorry? Yeah, but those came way later. I'm talking about like 0 to 99, like AD, like thousands of years ago,
And,
way back in the past.
Sorry, what language was Jesus speaking?
Jesus probably spoke many languages because,
Aramaic. The answer is Aramaic.
This one language.
well,
So,
again,
when it was revealed to him, the Bible
you
was
would have to
revealed
prove
Yeah.
that he only spoke Aramaic because, as we know, in the ancient world, people spoke multiple tongues because there wasn't a singular common language. The British Empire hadn't gone yet and they taught everyone English, right? So probably he spoke at least Aramaic, probably Greek.
You can't prove that.
Sorry?
You can't prove language.
Well, I can because he talked to people who wouldn't have spoken Aramaic. In the Gospels, he speaks to a centurion, a Roman soldier, a high-ranking one. They don't have to speak Aramaic because Jesus Christ came from Nazareth. So he must have spoken a Nazarene dialect of Aramaic, which is like very, very precise. So a centurion wouldn't be speaking that, meaning that he would have to talk to him in Greek.
So can I make an argument on that point?
The gospel.
So the gospel message was transcribed by the Apostle John, or the disciple John, sorry, the disciple Matthew, the Apostle Mark, and the Apostle Luke. They are the ones who transcribe these and then spread them.
you know, I was brought on Catholic. So,
Okay.
My understanding is these Gospels were written about 100 to 200 years after the death of Jesus.
That's not true. Because if that was the case, then you wouldn't have, like, for example, churches popping up with. So, for example, in Ethiopia, where you have Christianity since the 1st century, they even have today a preserved Bible from the 4th century, so from the 300s, right? That is a copied manuscript of Bibles from the 1st century. So you already had the Old Testament; it was already there. So everything from Genesis all the way to Malachi was already there, like 300 years at least before the birth of Christ. So that was already there. And then the New Testament was also written down in the 1st century.
So is there a Bible that you can refer to that was around from the time of Jesus?
So there wasn't a full Bible as we know it today, but the gospel messages were already transcribed in Scriptural gospel churches.
Like he said, people came 200, 300 years after.
No, it was during the 1st century because, like I said,
That's a historical fact.
it's not a historical fact because these were already written beforehand. So that wouldn't be a historical fact.
Exodus.
Huh?
Who wrote Exodus?
So the first 5 books, I think we're going to have to move. That thing's coming. Will it spin? Yeah? Will it spin or? Sorry. Yeah. Apparently got a seizure. Sorry. Who wrote Exodus? Exodus is attributed to Moses. So it was either Moses or his scribes, because in the story of Moses, he is raised in the house of the Pharaoh, and so it is from what we know about ancient Egyptians, it is like okay to assume that he was at least educated enough to write. So likely he wrote like some of the first like the scriptures of Exodus, but also he taught these to his scribes. And when he died, Joshua and Aaron were there in his stead to take over. And so they probably also wrote some of that too. So the first 5 books, the Genesis, Exodus, Numbers, Deuteronomy.
Would have written like, and Moses went to this, and Moses done that. But you, like, is it I went here and I went there?
Well, again, like unless some sorts of, I generally don't know because again, he was raised. So we can assume some things, right? He was raised in the house of Pharaoh, and we can't say for certain what they spoke in that time, but some sort of like Proto-Coptic or something. I could be completely wrong. But at least later in the book of Acts, we learn that Moses was apparently well studied in all the ways of the Egyptians. So we can at least know that he knew a little bit about their history, about their writing system, whatever the case might be. But also because he was writing these like scrolls now for people who were not Egyptians, we can also assume that he wrote them probably in some kind of language that they could understand.
He published it in multiple languages.
I would say probably in a language that they could understand, because I don't know if they could speak the children of Israel,
Israelites.
who were with them at the time.
Spoke one language, no?
Well, again, we're not sure, because technically, if you're away in a land for 400 or something years, and also the people who left Egypt weren't just Israelites, there were also other people who were slaves there, we can't assume that they only took one language. Probably more.
So the argument that Jesus made to Pharaoh, let my people go, is talking about
that Moses,
Israelites, right? That Moses made.
Yes.
Was let my people go.
Because he's born of them. His parents are Israelites. Yes.
The Exodus was the Israelites leaving Egypt, right?
Israelites and other people as well.
And
yes.
other people.
Yes.
So he wrote the Exodus in whatever language they spoke as Israelites.
Yep.
And it was incoherent to the other people who were there.
I can't say for certain, because I can't say that the other people who were there
So
wouldn't
you're claiming that he wrote it in multiple languages.
I didn't say that necessarily, but you could say that probably it's safe to assume he potentially did. Or they had some kind of shared common language in which they could potentially read, for those who could read.
And that language would have been different from what Jesus spoke.
Very different, because we're thousands of years departed, right?
Yeah.
Like English 500 years ago is hard to read today.
Yeah. So,
Yes.
The argument that I made earlier,
Yep.
when you misinterpreted something from the Quran because it's in Arabic,
Okay.
facing east and west,
Okay.
can we not assume that the Bible also made mistakes linguistically if it's not written in the language that Jesus spoke? So the Roman Bible.
Okay.
That's a good point.
Okay.
That's absolutely
All right.
right.
So, luckily for us, things aren't just translated using Google Translate. People spoke multiple languages.
They had no
People spoke. They didn't have any Wi-Fi, unfortunately. People spoke Greek and Arabic. People spoke Greek and Persian. So these people were capable of understanding a message in one language and then transcribing it to another language. That's how interpreters work. So
And we're
Sure.
assuming they were all linguistic experts.
Well, they should have been, right?
been, but were they?
Because, again, they should have been because committing that work is a very important skill that not just anyone can do.
Absolutely.
So you have to be someone of an expert. It has to be a trade for you, for example. You wouldn't be a carpenter and then be a translator unless you were somehow very skilled in both.
So which university or which entity transcribed the Bible into multiple different versions?
So, like I said,
languages?
it was being done from the very first century.
By the Romans as an example.
Well,
the Roman
not
Bible.
just there is no Roman Bible.
Apologies.
Yep.
Which Bible are we actually
referring to.
Yeah. So
one is
there
it? Which Bible is the word of God?
right. So okay. So two things there. When you say which Bible, there are many different translations of the Bible because we
I want
accept
the source.
the source.
The
OG,
source.
the original.
Okay. So
The original.
okay. So if you're looking for the gospel that was penned by Mark himself, it might be a little bit too late for that. Paper diminishes over time. So you probably can't read that, which isn't a problem because it will be the language that you can't even
But
read.
there would be an authentic chain of narration, right?
Well, I mean, sure thing, right?
how you
Because
I know the Muslims have that.
well, the Muslims like to brag about it, but they took it from the Christians.
They took one
Well,
from the Christians.
okay,
yeah.
but who has it today?
So, for example, if
Because
you
you just said we might be too late, right? So if
No,
we're too
we
late,
might
that
be-
means that chain of narration.
okay, no, so I didn't say the chain of narration. I said that if you wanted to read the original Greek manuscript that Mark wrote of the gospel, it might be too late. In the same way that the Quran that was written apparently like 2 years after Muhammad died is gone now. You can't go and read it
Sorry,
again.
after Muhammad died, you said?
Yes, you can't go and read it again. It's gone now, right? The Quran.
No. I think we need to touch on that because in the time of Muhammad,
Yes.
when it was recited, it wasn't written as a book. It wasn't
Same thing with the
compiled as a book.
Gospels. They were recited
But
first.
the thing is, you can go to every part of the world now,
Okay.
right? And you can find somebody here who has memorized the whole Quran here.
Okay.
You go to the other side of the world,
Okay.
and you're going to find people that have memorized the whole Quran.
They'll say the
What
same.
does that?
100%. What that means,
Okay.
what that shows, is that there is something very authentic and profound in that book, yeah, in that Quran, that
Okay.
it has been preserved even to this day. That you could throw all the Qurans away, you could throw them all away and burn them, whatever, right? This is true, right? And then the next day we'd have it straight back as it was when it was revealed in the time of the Prophet.
Awesome, awesome.
You see what I mean?
I want to comment on all those things, if you don't mind. So, my friend, what you're feeding me is something that in this park we call the Dawah scripts. This sounds like something that you were told by a Muslim, and you've just taken it all as being true. Okay, but there are issues with this. I can go through them one by one for you. The first one being that in the same way that you said that the Quran was memorized and recited, that was the same thing with the gospel message. That's why it was written after Christ had descended, not before. People were learning it as songs, and it was being sung in churches as liturgies. So people were committing whole gospel books into memory. Anyway, now we have the printing press. We don't need that anymore. If you want to memorize the Gospels, you can. It's not the same as the Quran, so that's fine. Because people memorize something, whether it be an entire book, a play, whatever might have you, doesn't mean it's divine. Many people around the world know Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. That doesn't mean it's divine. So all you can say by people memorizing it is that all you can say is that is proof that people memorize it. It doesn't mean that what they have is the same thing Muhammad has.
Touch on the difference. The difference is there is a chain of narration of the person who that spoke it to that person to that person. So what I'm saying is, in Christendom, yeah.
Yes.
Do you have that as well?
Okay, so
you come to me.
What-
or here and you
I say yes.
Mark, Matthew, Luke, and John.
Yes.
Who recited it to them first?
Okay, so
Like from the source, from Jesus.
Okay.
Who recited it to them
okay,
first?
so obviously, in the same way that Jesus Christ is the teacher, the rabbi of these individuals, Matthew, Luke, and John, he is the one who would have imparted the message of the gospel to them. Now, in Alexandria, in Egypt, we have a pope there, or a patriarch, and he is a descendant in what we call apostolic succession from Mark. So Mark founded the church in Egypt, in Alexandria, and he anointed the person to take over from him, and that has been happening since the 1st century till now.
No, wait.
And you have the same thing in Rome. Their pope, Peter, was the first pope, and he anointed his successors all the way from him till now.
Peter Paul.
No, Peter is Peter. Paul is Paul.
No, but one of them changed the name, right?
Yes. So Saul became Paul. Greetings. Yep. Saul became Paul. Okay.
Who was it that was on the road to Damascus?
That was Saul. But just those two examples, you have patriarchs in the east and the west who both descend in apostolic succession from disciples of Christ. Okay? So those are just two for you, right? Today, you don't have any caliph or caliphate anywhere that descends from Muhammad. Those are all gone. And Christ told us in the New Testament that the gates of hell would never prevail against the church. The church, through all the highs and lows, has been here in the first century and will carry on being here until Christ returns. But whatever Muhammad was setting up, it had its heyday, and now it's gone.
It's gone?
It's gone.
The billions of Muslims around the world.
So, that's not what Muhammad was setting up. That's not what Muhammad was setting up, right? Muhammad was trying to set up some kind of like global like caliphates, right? Where everything was ruled by an ummah or somebody who, for example, what happened after he died? You had caliphs, right? Now, I'm not sure if he said that we should have caliphs or whatever. You had caliphs, right? Where are the caliphs today? They are gone. Right? No one has them anymore. There are no more caliphates. There will be no more caliphates because now we have a world that is way too interdependent on a number of different political systems to function. So I would say that you're probably better off holding on the words of Christ compared to the words of Muhammad. And those have been transcribed to us through the churches.
You know what? I'm ready to be a Christian.
Amen.
On
Easy.
one condition.
On one condition.
One condition.
What is?
Show me one verse in the Bible where Jesus says, "Worship me, I am your Lord."
So that is okay. All right. So there's a problem with that. Okay.
I'll do it now.
Right. So I want to just ask one question, say one thing, and then give you the answer. The problem is your faith in Islam so shaky that just because wait, no, I said I'll ask a question, I'll say a statement, and then I'll answer. That's what I said.
Answer and make a statement.
The first question is your faith in Islam so shaky that just because Jesus in the Bible, which you already kind of believe is corrupted, says he is God, you would leave? Yes or no?
Or is his confidence in Islam so high that you cannot prove that Jesus said that?
It's
I
a
gave
challenge.
an offer that
Right?
I know that firstly it can't happen.
Okay, right, okay, fair enough.
So to be honest,
That's fine.
You know,
Okay, fair
being a
enough.
smart ass, if you like.
Fair enough.
Secondly, I've got absolutely no doubt, not an inkling, that Islam is actually the one true faith. And probably like yourself, I've spent many years as a Catholic, as a Christian, going through all of these things here. And it's a much deeper debate than this. But we have to be rational and we have to be logical, right, in our findings and what really is evidence rather than blind following.
Okay.
You understand? Because it sounds like you're making a lot of, kind of comparisons that are a bit
Vague.
vague, yeah.
How specific should I be?
Very specific. You must be.
Okay.
When we're looking for the truth, you must be very specific and as detailed as you can be.
Tell me specifically why Islam is true.
Which part? Like
Anything of it.
From an intellectual level?
Sure thing.
Alright, so we've got a lot of things that are scientifically backed up in the project.
You know that's not true anymore, right?
What do you mean anymore?
As in, like, the Dawah man himself, the Almighty Ali Dawah has said that it is nonsense. That there are no scientific miracles in the Quran.
There's no what?
Scientific miracles in the Quran, because science can change and the Quran doesn't.
Now you're changing it.
That's what he said.
I like your word.
That's what he said. Have you seen the video?
Out of context. What he's saying
That's
is
what he said.
the Quran is the miracle. Yeah. So we don't whatever the Quran says.
Okay.
That's it. That's the miracle. That's what we believe. We don't need science to prove the Quran. So I've done a weak little argument here, I guess, by saying we got scientific facts.
Yeah.
Actually,
it's a strong argument because you know about embryology in the Quran.
He knows about it all. He's heard it 100 times.
It was taken from Greeks.
It takes from
Where's your proof of that?
From Greeks.
the study of embryology at the time of the Greeks, ancient Greeks.
Yes.
How did they study embryos?
Anybody who has a farm animal or a pet, you don't need a microscope. Anybody who has a farm animal or a pet can see an embryo. Animals have miscarriages all the time.
embryo.
Yep.
You mean at a cellular level?
Well, the Quran does not describe anything on a cellular level.
Single
No, it
transition.
doesn't.
Every single transition.
It talks about blood and a
this is
blood
where I know.
clot. Those
No,
are not cellular.
This is where I know that you're lacking understanding.
Show me the word cell in the Quran. Show me.
Just one second. Your lack of understanding of the Quran is not just linguistic.
Show me the word
You're
cell.
not understanding the context either.
Okay.
This is my argument.
Well, I would say that the context is not there. You're simply putting it on.
I'm putting in the context.
Yes, you are.
So I'm adding to the Quran
Yes,
as I speak.
because the word cell isn't there anywhere.
The word cell is not
That's not the first thing.
All right.
But then, lastly, sorry, I made the point. I asked the question. I made the point. The point I was going to make, was that you don't need something called an exact word fallacy to prove something is true. If I said I won't believe that Muhammad is a Muslim unless you show me in the Quran where it says Muhammad is a Muslim, that would be an exact word fallacy. There are other things you can point to that can showcase to you in the Quran that Muhammad is a Muslim. Okay? So, lastly, to answer your question, where does Jesus Christ say, I am God, worship me? I would say that God doesn't need to say that for you to worship him. It should be evidence from the actions of God. And if you want something that's very example, is God, and the Father should be worshipped, correct? Jesus Christ, in John 16:15, says that all that belongs to the Father is mine. So, if the entire universe, all creation, all dominion, all praise belongs to the Father, Jesus Christ is claiming that also belongs to him.
And is this on all the Bibles?
All of them. All of them. So therefore, that would mean that Jesus is claiming to have everything that God the Father has. If you don't believe me, is it possible for Muhammad to say, all that Allah has is mine? Why?
But my question is, in what context? In what context is Jesus saying?
In any context.
That I have everything that God
in
has?
any context you want to do.
Well, it doesn't make sense.
To interpret that Jesus is God in human form.
Right.
But my friend, out of curiosity, can you tell me why I cannot say, or why it's incorrect to say, all that belongs to Allah is Muhammad's?
Does Muhammad say that?
does not claim that he's not claiming.
Okay, so he's not claiming, but is that the only reason?
Nobody's bestowed it on him.
Muhammad never said that he's like a handsome guy, right? Well, but we can say maybe for a handsome guy, we can say that, right? So just because he doesn't say it, that means it's not true.
We're not worshipping Muhammad.
No, again, also, okay, so you see what he said there? We're not worshiping Muhammad, right? Meaning that if somehow somebody said that all that belongs to God is mine, and they weren't lying, that would mean that they were divine. Is that what it means? That's what I'm gathering.
Wait, why are we asking? Sorry, just so that I understand. Why are we asking what Muhammad didn't say instead of what he said?
Because there is a ramification to what Jesus says. It's not something a regular guy can say. You see what I mean, by the way?
I'm not sure where you're going.
So, all that belongs to the Father is mine. And Jesus Christ, the Bible says that there is no sin in him. That's why he can take away sin, right? So, assuming that he held to the law wholeheartedly, the Ten Commandments, which is why we can say he was perfect, right? In that he never sinned against God. If he then claims to own everything that God owns, that means that by default he is God.
Is that
And
that's
no, this is the Bible.
If I was to say,
Yep.
I own everything my father owns.
Yes.
I am my father.
No, you're not your father, but you own everything that he owns, right? Now, what does your father own? A house, a car, some assets. What does God own?
Everything in the universe.
So therefore, Christ does too.
But that does not make him and his father the same.
Well, that's not my argument. My argument is that makes him God. That makes Christ God. Now, God is a person. Sorry, Christ is a person of God. Christ isn't the Father. He is distinct from the Father, but he is God.
Why is he distinguishing himself from God if he is God?
Because God is tri-personal. 3 persons, the Father, Son, and Spirit. He isn't just unipersonal. Oh.
Jesus is God in human form.
Sure, yeah, God in the flesh.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's God in the flesh.
Sure. No, my friends here are Muslims.
I guess, yeah.
My friends here are Muslims. I'm just trying to get it to them.
I'm just trying to answer.
No, not a problem.